First impressions with the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 are almost entirely positive. It's incredibly thin and light. It's really nice to hold. As soon as you pick it up, you'll notice just how light it is. It's something you can hold in one hand quite easily. That screen just pops out immediately. It's really, really nice, and first impressions are very positive. It's got stereo speakers on either side, one here and one here. Speakers are above average for a tablet, and it's actually quite nice to see stereo speakers on a Samsung device, although perhaps their placement isn't quite optimized. We'll discuss that in a bit. In terms of overall design and first impression, it really is, you are reminded very much that it is a Samsung product, just from the bezels design, the home button to the capacitive buttons, even to the back where we have a Samsung Galaxy S5 esque design on the back plate, which is not removable this time. We do have a couple of extra little circle button type things here. This is to attach the Samsung book cover to it, which is similar to the iPad Smart cover. So overall, you can tell as a Samsung device, it very much follows their design ethos, and but it's very positive. It's that screen. It's so light. It's so thin. I'm looking forward to having a play with this. So what's it like to use? Well, the simple answer is it's very impressive for an Android tablet. It's really nice to use. The design features this beautiful QHD Super AMOLED display. So again, we're looking at a 2560 by 1440 screen here. It's 6.6 millimeters thin. Now in comparison with, say, the iPad Air 2, which is only 6.1 millimeters, and the iPad Mini 2 and 3, which is 7.5 millimeters. So tiny bit thicker than the iPad Air 2, but actually a fair bit thinner than the iPad Mini. Weighing 294 grams, which is less than the iPad Mini, despite having a bigger screen, is something that you almost immediately notice in hand. It's comfortable to use in portrait or landscape, and you really do appreciate just how light this is. It's something you won't mind. In fact, you won't even feel if you put it in your backpack to take with you on a day, and you could quite comfortably perhaps hold it over your head in bed while you're using it at night. Now, we're actually getting a screen to body ratio of 76.6%, which is actually quite impressive for a Samsung device. What this means is that we're getting a large display within quite a compact form factor, allowing it to be used in sort of one-handed use, despite having a actually 0.5 inch larger screen than even the iPad Mini. So just for a bit of comparison, if we do, say, put this next to the 5.7 inch Galaxy Note 4 on one side, and although it's not a direct competitor because it's a bit larger, if we put it against the iPad Air 2 on the left, you'll see it sort of sits quite comfortably in the middle of the two of them. 9.7 inches, 8.4, 5.7. So it's very much an in-between, although you could obviously argue that the Note 4 is a very big smartphone and almost a phablet. So against the iPad Air 2, it's a 0.5 mil difference in thickness, which is almost unnoticeable. They're both incredibly thin and really nice. Obviously the iPad Air 2 is bigger, it's got a bigger screen, that's fine, it's therefore heavier. But personally, having used both, I actually prefer, in terms of ergonomics, the Galaxy Tab S. It's just easier to use, it's more comfortable, obviously it is lighter, and although the Air 2 is a bit thinner, you don't really notice it. The design perhaps not quite so positive on the back there, as we said, it's sort of very reminiscent of the Galaxy S5. I don't think anyone thinks that's particularly nice. Obviously everyone has their own opinion and their own taste, but it's fine. It's reasonably grippy, so you can actually you are able to get a good solid grip on it, and you're not going to worry about the fingerprints or even scratching necessarily. But so it's functional, serviceable, but not premium. Again, let's look at the iPad 2, and I think perhaps you'll agree that the Apple is a bit nicer in that regard. But it's purely an aesthetic thing, and I don't think we can take any points away from the Samsung for that. Just using it will be familiar to anyone who's used a Samsung product before. We have the normal two capacitive buttons here, one for opening your previous apps and for return, and a normal home button which doubles as a fingerprint reader, which we'll talk about a bit later on. The design, front and back, and obviously we've got TouchWiz as the software, is exactly what you'd expect from a Samsung device, warts and all, unfortunately, and we'll discuss perhaps how to speed up TouchWiz again a bit later. So if you've used a Samsung device before, you know exactly what you're going to get. No surprises there. One thing that I actually do immediately like as soon as I used it was, if you scroll left from the home screen, you're presented with this really nice sort of Flipboard-esque widget display, which uses the screen real estate so well. It's really well optimized, and I really like it. Again, if you scroll, you get emails, your calendar. Here you can get stocks and news and bits and pieces of your video. I think it's really a really good use of space by Samsung, and something I'd like to see on more Android tablets. If you go back to just a standard home screen, I know you can perhaps put widgets here, you could fill it with more apps, but it's a bit plain, it's a bit boring. Space isn't used particularly well, which we'll go on to in a bit with a couple of the apps. But this sort of really does represent what I think a tablet sort of experience should be on an Android tablet especially. So I think Samsung's done quite well here. It also has the standard sort of specifications you come to expect, including Bluetooth 4, Wi-Fi AC, micro USB 2 on the bottom, 3.5mm jack, stereo speakers on the top and bottom, and 16GB of internal storage with an expandable micro SD for up to 128GB cards. So let's take a look at the screen a little bit more. 8.4 inches, QHD, Super AMOLED. This is so bright. It really is one of the key features of this device. The viewing angles are incredible. It's really, really bright. I can't fault it. It's punchy. It's nice to use. The colors just jump right out at you. It's such a pleasure to use, and I guarantee you, if you put this to sort of full brightness and put a nice colourful background on it, you'll and show it to someone, they'll just be wowed by just quite how vivid it is, and it is probably the selling point for this tablet. It's got a lot of other pros and a lot of features to it, but that screen is a standout feature that you'll immediately recognise as soon as you see it. And obviously we're getting quite a good 359 ppi at this resolution with an 8.4 inch screen, so that's very good for a tablet and ensures that all text and images are nice and crisp. In terms of performance, we have Samsung's own Exynos 5 octa-core 5420 8-core processor. That's a bit of a mouthful, clocked at 1.9 GHz. We also have 3 gigs of RAM, so we're good for multitasking. But interestingly, even though this was released in July 2014, if I run a couple of benchmarks for you, you'll see that I've run this earlier to save time. It's not really that high compared to a lot of other things. We're getting a lot, sort of 48,000 on the Galaxy Note. We're getting about similarly 45 to 47 on the iPhone 6 on the iPads. It's not, especially in synthetic benchmarks, in the same league really as these other devices. But I suppose the important question is, does this transfer to actually using? Or can you tell that it's perhaps not quite as fast in raw performance? And the simple answer is it's not. It's absolutely fine. You can't tell the difference. If we jump into modern combat very quickly, you'll see that frame rates don't dip. We get really good performance all around generally. So I'll shut up for a second and we'll have a quick play of this. Now, as I go through this, obviously this is the beginning, so we're not getting a great representation of the frame rate, but one thing I can point out immediately is holding it like this, which you probably would in a game, I'm covering almost either one or both of these stereo speakers. And it becomes quite noticeable, especially actually if you accidentally hold one and not the other. It very much instantly becomes sort of mono sound. I suppose the fix for this is you have to hold it with your palms open, or perhaps a little bit more easy is just to hold it upside down like this. I suppose it's not really an upside down, but it's not the way I naturally hold it for some reason. And it's not actually even flipping that way. Perhaps I have to restart the game for it to work in that direction. But anyway, I have to be a little bit careful because you do cover these speakers with your palms quite easily, and it does muffle the sound quite significantly. So we're in the game now. Let's have a quick look around. You can see immediately there's absolutely no problem with frame rate here. I wouldn't claim to be very good at this game, but no problem at all. So essentially, even though we have Samsung's own Exynos processor here, and it is clocked quite a bit lower than perhaps competing Snapdragon processors, it doesn't translate to any real world performance difference. So that's not gonna be a problem. You're gonna be able to play all the latest games, or pretty much flawlessly. So that's not a problem at all. In terms of battery, inside we have a non-replaceable 4,900 milliamp battery. Again, with Samsung recently we have power saving modes and also ultra power saving modes, which can be accessed from the settings. Ultra power saving, more interestingly, if you do open it, restricts the display to a grayscale color. It restricts performance, but it will give you a number of days worth of battery based on even only a few percent of juice left. Battery life is really good though, similar to what the iPad I'd say. I think we're getting about a day and a half of moderate continued usage from this. If you just use it occasionally, perhaps you keep it in a drawer, you'll only probably charge it twice a week with light to moderate use. So really good battery, and charges nice and quickly as the Galaxy Note 4 does. So lots of pluses right there. Continuing on the theme of performance, apps load nice and quickly. Everything looks great. The screen looks fantastic on everything. Loads nice and fast. Everything is really smooth. Takes a while. Everything runs silky smooth. It's flawless. It's really nice, and actually very good considering we're using Samsung's own TouchWiz here. A couple of things I'd recommend to do to speed up TouchWiz. I go into more detail on my Galaxy Note 4 review, but if you either disable S-Voice, which can be accessed from the home button, or if you don't want to disable it completely, just go into the options and disable S-Wake on home button press, because otherwise if you press the home button it basically waits for you to press it twice to activate S-Voice. So if you turn that off, it's no longer waiting and everything's a bit more responsive. So this is how it is when it's off. It's nice and quick and responsive. Similarly, if you want to go to DevTools, open the options and reduce the animations a little bit, you can do. Most of you probably know how to do that already. Again, for a little bit more detail, if you want, look at my Note 4 review, because it's a very similar product, obviously just scaled up, but it's pretty similar in terms of features and software. So I went into a little bit more detail with this, so please check that out for a little bit more information. On the rear, we have a 8 megapixel camera with LED flash and a 2.1 megapixel on the front, both capable of recording 1080p. As every time I review a tablet, there's always that debate and question about how important a camera on a tablet is, but perhaps because this is a bit smaller than a full-size tablet, being only 8.5 inch, 8.4 inch, you're perhaps slightly more likely to use it as a camera. Now the main problem with Android tablets, and this has been a bigger issue in the past, and not so much now because most of the apps have improved, but a few just really aren't optimized for tablet screen sizes, and even fewer are optimized for a tablet screen size and a QHD resolution. Now the majority are fine. For example, if we go on IMDb here, we're getting lots of nice content. If we go on BBC News, similarly we got nice big. I don't know why it keeps closing. Nice big pictures, lots of content, looks good. But strangely, if we go on Facebook, which is an app that quite a lot of people use, you'll see that it's really, really small. I don't know how well that's coming out for you, but it's crisp and it's, viewing angles are nice and it all looks nice, but it's really, really small. Everything, the text is small and the images are small. It's just a bit odd, and you struggle to read it a little bit. It's becomes a little bit uncomfortable, and I have quite good eyesight, but those who don't, or perhaps more elderly people, it's something I might struggle with a little bit. But fortunately, this is in the minority of cases for popular apps. The vast majority work well, and they do look good on their screen. So perhaps it's not quite as holistically elegant in all of the applications that you might want to use, but the vast majority are completely fine, so I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it is something to be aware of. Now, similar to the Galaxy S5, we have the home button doubling as a fingerprint reader. If we go to settings and go to lock screen and enable fingerprint as our security, it takes about 30 seconds to register. I'll show you now. So you just swipe your finger down here. Anyone who's used a Galaxy S5 will know how this works, and it's fairly easy to register. I'll enter a quick password as a backup. So now it's locked in my fingerprint, and if I turn the tablet off and click it on, and then I can hopefully scroll down with my finger to unlock the tablet. It's not too bad. Again, I've said this on my Note 4 review. It's not something I'd probably personally use because it's fairly inconsistent, and let's see if it works again. Yeah, it's not too bad. it's working quite well. And actually, from experience, it actually works a little bit better than the S5, although as you can still see, you've got to use it straight on. You can't sort of swipe your finger sideways, which you might do if you're in a more comfortable one-handed position. You sort of have to grab it with the other hand and swipe down. So it's not the best use of it, and against the iPad Touch ID, it doesn't really hold a candle to it. So it's a bit of a non-feature that, but maybe cool if you want to try it. And obviously you can pay for things via PayPal with it, so you can save a few seconds there. Another really great feature with this device, and again with many other Samsung devices, is its multitasking abilities. If we swipe in from the right bezel, you'll see a list of apps that we can multitask. We have in dual window view. So for example, I could, if I click on YouTube, it'll open that there. And if I click on, say, Facebook, we'll open it on the bottom half. This can be adjusted on the fly. It's not quite as responsive as perhaps you'd quite like, but it's useful. I could be playing a video, I could be checking my email, making a text, writing a text, and it's quite nice to have. And multitasking really does come into its own on a larger screen, perhaps like a tablet. It's not quite so well suited to smaller smartphones. Going back to my question from the beginning, this really is the best Android tablet you can buy, in my opinion. It even gives the iPad a really good run for its money. The problem is, I'm still not sold on Android tablets. I think it comes down to the software is just not really quite there yet. Apps still aren't optimized as well as they should be, and you're really not making the best use of the extra space you get with a tablet over, say, a phone. Having said that, I am still really impressed with one of Samsung's main features here, which is its sort of flipboard-like widgets to the left of the home screen. I think they really show what efficient use of space on an Android tablet should look like, and in comparison with the normal home screen, shows just how bare it is and how underused and unoptimized it is. So I like they've included it, and it's something I'd like to use a lot. Should be present on more Android tablets. In terms of hardware generally, it's very impressive. It really feels like quite a futuristic tablet, and it's an absolute pleasure to use and hold. It's so light, it's so thin, it's got a bigger screen than the iPad Air Mini, but yet it's lighter. It is really quite impressive, and I really recommend actually just going to try one and hold one in your hand. Moreover, you can hold it in your hand one-handed, and although you can also with the iPad Mini and other smaller tablets, this one is the first one that actually quite comfortably can just read it, use it, play games on it, browse the web with it. I think the standout feature here though really is that screen. I think it is as good as, if not perhaps even slightly better than iPad screens, and that's saying something. It is so punchy, it's so colourful, it's so bright. It's just so nice to look at, and pretty much everything you do on it just becomes more pleasurable for it. So it's a key feature, and it really is a selling point. Overall though, I would say this is one of the best tablets you can buy, Android or otherwise. Should you opt for this, the 8.4, or its bigger brother, the 10.5 inch? Well, that's up to you. Personally, I prefer this one. It's got a higher PPI, it's cheaper, it's lighter, it's just easier to use in this form factor. I find it more comfortable. So I would opt for this one personally, but they're both great tablets. For about the same cost, you can get the iPad Mini 2, so that's something you're going to have to weigh up and compare whether you have a preference toward Apple or Android. But both fantastic tablets, and they both do offer something a bit different. This, for example, does have a much higher res screen. It is even lighter than the iPad Mini, which is incredible despite having a 0.5 inch bigger screen. So there definitely are pluses to this, even if perhaps the software isn't quite there, and maybe Apple do have better apps for tablets, or at least more optimized apps for tablets at the moment. But that's a issue that's becoming less of a problem as time goes on, and maybe with the apps you use it doesn't even come into play at all. The Galaxy Tab S is good value, it's fun to use, it's got a stunning display, and shows that Android tablets really can compete with iPads these days. If you're in the market for a new tablet, you should have this really at the top of your list. I highly recommend it. Anyway, this has been a review by the Tech Chap for the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you found it useful. If you do like it, please like and subscribe, and I look forward to reading any comments or questions you may have. Thanks for watching. Bye.